Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI5. In the last episode of SAP UI5, we discussed about jQuery chapter. In today's session, we will go ahead and start with actual SAP UI5 programming. So let's get started. What is SAP UI5? Why do we use it? What is the technology, or what is the exact pattern to follow the development using SAP UI5 paradigm? Let's get started with that. So what is SAP UI5 first of all? Why SAP UI5? So we observe that if we want to create a web application and as well as a responsive web application, we have to provide a lot of code. We have to provide CSS, we have to provide HTML, we have to provide JavaScript, and all the orchestration logic is written also in the JavaScript. So over a period of time, in the world there are a lot of improvements and innovation has happened, and people have developed a lot of frameworks. These frameworks gives you ready to use libraries, and they can be used to achieve the desired task with a beautiful user interface with a very less time, because you don't have to sit and write every single line of HTML and CSS and JavaScript. The framework does it on its own way. Okay, and that's what one of the framework is SAP UI5 framework. So what is SAP UI5? SAP UI5 is nothing but it is a framework based on open standards, which are HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. There are also some of them like data.js, D3.js. Okay, these are all the open standard less. These are all the open standards. On top of it, this framework is built. Now, can anybody tell me, does browser understand SAP UI5 or not? Anyone? What do you think? Does browser understand SAP UI5? No, browser don't
No,
understand anything. Browser only understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what the SAP have done is they have come up with a framework which is a collection of libraries, and these libraries are written in the JavaScript. Okay, so SAP UI5 is a collection of libraries, which of course a framework is. Okay, any framework, if you look at, it is actually a collection. Okay, any framework you look at, it's actually a collection of libraries, and these libraries are written inside JavaScript. Okay, it's a collection of libraries which helps us to build responsive web applications. Now, already about these libraries, I had discussed in my demo session. So those who were part of it, you remember that SAP UI5 framework, it's a framework, and you see this framework is divided into two parts, the runtime part and the design time part. The design time part of the framework includes a lot of libraries, and the base for building UI5 is all these open standards. On top of it, we have different core libraries, and on top of it, we have different control libraries. So that's how the framework is designed in SAP UI5. So now, if you look at the framework itself, you see it's collection of libraries. It's a collection of libraries, and these are all the libraries we have it, and they are written in JavaScript. Okay, these libraries are written in JavaScript. So what exactly UI5 framework is doing behind the scenes whenever you're writing a UI5 code? So what you do as a developer, you will be working with the UI5 code. So you will write UI5 code by following the UI5 methodologies, and then when you write that UI5 code into a file and then you submit this file, so this is the UI5 code you've written. This is again written in XML or JavaScript. These are all the two techniques which we often use to write such code. And when this code is written, do you think that browser understand UI5 directly? Just UI5. Browser don't understand just UI5, but browser understand HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. So what SAP UI5 framework does, the code which you have written, it understands this code because you will use the libraries. So you will reuse the libraries which are provided by UI5 like sap.ui.commons. And once this is used, once you use this library and you give this code to SAP UI5 framework, which is downloaded in browser, we will use, what it will do is it will convert this piece of code to an equivalent JavaScript, HTML, CSS code. So it basically converts it to an HTML5 plus CSS code. Now, what do you think? Is this clearly understandable by browser? Can browser understand this directly? What is the final product which SAP UI5 has produced? Can browser understand this or not? Yes or no? Yes,
Yes.
browser can understand it. That's what is happening behind the scenes. Whenever you are creating a UI5 application and you executing it, what is that UI5 framework or the its libraries are doing? It's converting your code to an equivalent HTML and CSS code. Okay, so that is what exactly a framework is doing. Now similar to this, there are a lot of different frameworks like Bootstrap framework. The other day I was talking about, there is also something called Angular JS. So those who have heard a lot about it, maybe those who are working already in companies in JavaScript modules, there is a very famous technology by Google called Angular JS. That's also JavaScript framework. So UI5 is similarly a open standard based framework which is used to build responsive web applications. Responsive means it can run these applications into mobile, tablet, and desktop with a great user experience, and it ultimately produce output as HTML5 and CSS output. Now, what I will do is I will just go ahead to the system and create our first UI5 application. But before we do, we need to understand a very important aspect of it. The aspect is called MVC architecture. What is MVC architecture? Now, before we even get into MVC architecture, let's discuss a very common problem which we all face in software industry. So let's imagine we are all working in software industry. We all have worked with one or the other day with object oriented programming. Now, when object oriented programming was introduced, there were lot of developers started using it. Yeah, and then these developers used to use object oriented program to fulfill certain tasks like create an object. So everybody needs an object to work with it, right? So to create the object, everybody started using their own style of creating objects. Some people used to put creation of object in programs. Some people used to put creation of object inside the class. Some people used to put creation of object inside, let's say, a function module. So everybody started their own style of creating object or own style of managing objects or performing tasks using object. There were no standardization, and there were lots of common problems which they face. Now, let me ask one question. Whenever you get stuck with some ABAP issue, or you don't know what is an ABAP, how to write this particular piece of code in ABAP, or what is the capability ABAP has, what do you do? Whenever you stuck with something in program, you don't know what is the code to write, what do you do usually? What do you do? You need help. Where do you get help? You get help from SAP documentation, F1 help. But do you really always use F1 help? Come on, be honest. Do we use F1 help always? You don't even know where to start with, what you're looking for, or you stuck into an error which you don't know what is it. Do we always use F1 help in ABAP? We do Google, right? So with the Google, what do we find? We find that somebody also faced the same problem in the past and they have already posted the answer. So like this, earlier when object oriented programming was introduced, this is what has happened. People were starting object oriented programming and they all were facing common problems like creating object, changing object, working with the object. Okay, so they all face these problems. So what people have done then, set of architects sit together and came up with set of guidelines and solution, I would say common solution to common problem. That's what they have done. So they've come up with set of guidelines, a common solution to common problem, and this was known as design pattern. Okay, this was known as design patterns. So there were common solution to common problem, and that was known as design pattern. Design pattern broadly categorized in three categories. One is called creational, second is called behavioral, and then there is one more, I'm missing the name. So there are three broad categories of design patterns. Okay, creational design pattern deals with creation of objects, only creation of objects. Some design patterns are like factory, abstract factory, singleton, multi-ton, all that are creational design pattern. Behavioral like decorator, you have event listener, you have facade. All these are different behavioral design pattern. So similarly, there was another design pattern which was introduced called MVC design pattern. It's also known as MVC architecture. Why we use MVC design pattern? What is the need? The reason is very simple. MVC design pattern is used whenever we have a user interface as part of our application. Okay, whenever we have user interface as part of our application, we use MVC design pattern. Now if you see, this is the common practice across industry. In almost in every framework where we have user interface involved. If you remember guys, those who worked with BSP technology or SAP WebDyn Pro ABAP or WebDyn Pro Java, we also use MVC design pattern over there as well. Or those who are working with Android development and iPhone development, or for example Angular JS development, we also use MVC design pattern. Similarly in SAP UI5, it's a UI framework, it's a framework where UI is involved, we also use MVC design pattern. If you want details about design patterns, learn all these design patterns. This is mainly an architecture course. Those who want to become an architect in your company, I am already offering a course on my website regarding the same. So I'll just show you here. So an Oops ABAP course is what I offer, in which I always teach design patterns also. So whatever common design patterns which we need are part of object oriented ABAP course offered on my website. So in this you can see all the different variety of design patterns are discussed in this particular course. Okay, very important. If you want to become an architect, this is the course probably you would like to go for. So let's move on back. So in MVC design pattern, as the name suggests, MVC, M stands for model, V stands for view, C stands for controller. Now in whole of my engineering days, I just learned one thing. whether it is electrical engineering, electronics engineering, mechanical, biotech, whatsoever it is. I only learned one common thing in it. And what's that one common thing? That one common thing is input, output, processing, and data. So that's what exactly your MVC design pattern is built. So you always have an input output, you have a processing, and you have a data, isn't it? Any machine or anything you pick it up, you will always find this. This is the abstract of entire engineering. Anything you pick it up, you will find input output, processing, and data. So what is input output MVC design pattern? So input output is your view. So view is nothing but user interface, from where we receive the input from the user and we will give output to the user using the view. Okay, then comes is the processing. Processing is nothing but the orchestration logic or your control flow logic. So that's done using controller. So this is your control flow. Let's say I click on a button, what should happen, right? I click on a button, what should happen? That goes into the controller, that you never put it in the view. Then comes is the data. What is data? Data is nothing but your model. So your data is represented using model objects into the UI5. So this is your core raw data. Yeah. So that's your MVC design pattern. Is that clear to everyone? What is MVC design pattern? Those who already worked on WebDin Pro, it you can also relate it to the MVC design pattern in WebDin Pro. There also it's same. I mean, this is a common practice in industry. It's a common design pattern, not very peculiar, very particular for UI5 guys. Okay. Now coming here, what is input output? Whenever user does an action on the user interface creates an event. Okay, it creates an event, and this event is then sensed by the processing unit, which is controller. So that is an event. So whenever an event comes, this event notifies the controller that there is something triggered by user. Once the notification comes, what the processing unit does, processing unit sends a response back to the view saying that, okay, I listened to your event and this is my response back. This is my final processing which is being done. And then it sends back the screen, it sends back the state of the UI one more time. Okay, it sets something to the UI, and then accordingly the UI will react. Similarly, if there is a need for data, it will just fetch request for the data from the model. Okay, it also notifies the model that there is a change in data or there is an update in data, and once that is done, the reference comes back to the controller and says, yeah, thank you so much, and then the update is available. Okay, so the processing unit orchestrates all the things for you whenever you're working with UI5. Is that clear to everyone what exactly is happening here? So this is how MVC design pattern works. Now, what else? So you have a processing unit which is processing your data. If there is a need for data, it talks to model. If there is a need for input output, then IO will trigger. Okay, then IO will trigger. Okay, so now what is also happening here? Now, one question to all of you. If you do not need a processing, if you do not need a processing on data, do you think to fetch the data that you need to take this long path? Anybody? If you don't need the data, do you think that you need to take this long path, go to controller, ask controller to read data, get the data in the controller, and then give the data to the view? Do you need this long path to fetch the data? Probably not. What if I connect both view and data together? That is also possible, guys. Why do I take such a long path to fetch my data? I can do it quite easily by connecting them with these two things together, right? This concept is known as data binding. or binding concept. Very powerful concept, guys. We'll see a lot of interview questions around this. This is called data binding. This concept is known as data binding concept. How do you connect your model and the view? It's called data binding concept in UI5, or in fact MVC architecture. This is MVC design pattern, guys. It is common across whether you're doing Android development, Angular JS, WebDyn Pro, BSP, whatsoever. This is the design pattern which we all follow. Clear to everyone? What is MVC design pattern? What is data binding? What is input output view? What is controller processing unit? What is model data unit? So that's our MVC design pattern. So let's get started. The first thing, first what we need to do now when we are starting a program, when we're starting our UI5 application, we need to load this framework. So steps to create our first program. First is we need to load the framework. Okay, so how can it be loaded? So anybody, what are all the two techniques you can load a reusable library? Anybody? We saw it in the case of jQuery. What are all the two techniques to load a reusable library? Anyone? What are all the two techniques to load a reusable library? Local and external. Perfect answer. One is the local reference, and second comes is the reference from CDN. Similarly, SAP UI5 framework, if you want to load in the browser, you have two options. One, you can reference the UI5 framework locally. One, you can reference it from CDN. That's our step number one when we are starting with UI5. So let's get started with our first UI5 program. So I come back to our web IDE, and you see guys, I'm also trying to create a pizza application here, best in pizza application, and I will be posting the end-to-end demo for this application onto our YouTube channel. So of course you can only understand once you know the bits and pieces of it, but you see there is a pizza application which I'm creating, and this is what you should be able to create towards the end of our course. And I've recently posted, in fact yesterday, a YouTube video on the same, how to get started with OData service, in fact with the database table. Okay, with the database table. So I say Anubhav Oberoi, I search for that, and you will see my channel, and you see simplified DB design on S4 HANA for Fiori app, a app on HANA with SAP UI5. This is the video which I posted yesterday, and in this video I have shown how to get started with the first database table. And database table also not just a database table, an extensible DB design, a simplified and extensible DB design, which means a DB design which can be extended for future purpose. I will highly recommend you to watch this video later point of time. Once you complete the Fiori course, you will get in the series of these videos how to build end-to-end Fiori application, a custom Fiori app starting with a custom database table with a custom logic and custom OData service and a custom Fiori application. So that's what I am trying to do it here. This is for the community and the people who are giving me so much of love. I'm getting daily like about 30-40 emails, guys, across the globe, people asking different questions. And imagine my life, it's so difficult because every time there is one or the other thing running in. So I highly recommend, if you are stuck somewhere, please watch our training videos. Don't just post doubt in an email to me. This is something which you can do, at least helping me to reduce my load, because sometimes I observe the student, they stuck somewhere, they don't watch training video properly, they stuck somewhere and they simply shoot an email to me. Once an email comes to me, I cannot resist myself answering that email. But it's a humble request to all of you, please consider my situation. It's I mean, I'm getting a lot of emails every day, and somehow if you want to help me, try to watch carefully things. I'm not asking you to search something on Google. I'm asking you just at least put some effort before you shoot an email to me. Be sure that what you have done is what you have, try to achieve. You have put enough amount of effort researching it, fixing the issue, and if you're not able to do it, then I am the last resort. But don't shoot an email directly. Imagine I will not be able to deliver more and more to you if I'm just keeping myself busy with just solving your doubts. Okay, so I'm not saying don't send me email, please send me, but make sure that what you're asking, you don't have any solution, you're completely stuck. Okay, so that's my YouTube series I'm starting. You can also go to my name and just go to the playlist available, and you will see Anubhav's learning series. This is something which I newly started, and I will be keep on posting my latest videos under this series. So that's the reason I would request you to please subscribe on my YouTube channel. It will give you great benefits, things which we cannot talk about in our training due to time constraint. You will be able to learn them directly from this YouTube channel, YouTube videos. Okay, so let's come back. Now I just start with our first Fury application. So right click our first UI5 application, and now I create a folder and just say my first UI5 app. Click on OK, and now just quickly include a file here inside called index.html. That's the file name. It's a standard file name what we typically put, and then I'll just add a doc type, and it's HTML. And then let me make it little big so you can see it. And then we just have HTML, we have header of HTML, and then finally we have body of HTML in place. Okay, in the demo video I showed you uh, how to go about loading the UI5 framework. So we saw that we were using a script and script tag. So every time you want to load an external framework or external library, you always use script and script tag, and you use an src property, right? So this is what also we saw in the demo part. So we were loading external JavaScript which is representing UI5 framework completely, and then also we have to couple of use a couple of more properties which are also important when especially you are loading UI5 framework. So we saw in our previous unit of jQuery that we loaded the jQuery library from internet, isn't it? We loaded it from internet directly. So in this UI5 case also there are two options available. One is that you load the library from internet. Another option you have it is you can load the SAP UI5 framework from local computer. Okay, so that's what exactly we can do it. There are two options, and then we need to also specify a couple of interesting properties, more properties. So let me just give that. So first property which we have to give is ID and SAP-UI-bootstrap, and then we have to give here the path of the UI5 framework. Now if you want to load it from locally, you say resource slash sap-ui-core.js. Now you'll say, Anubhav, what does the locally means? We never downloaded this resource file in our computer. How it is referencing locally? So you don't have to do it, WebID does it for you. So WebID, this whole development environment what you are using, it already has a packet of SAP UI5 inbuilt. So when you're typing this path, you are saying resource, which means WebID resources. In this resources, SAP UI5 packet is already available. So then this piece of code means you are talking about UI5 resources to be loaded in the browser when your app runs. So once this framework is loaded, which is a JavaScript framework, you see it's a JS. So it is getting loaded in the browser, and when you load it in the browser then can understand what you have written. So whatever code you will write, browser can understand that because you loaded the UI5 framework already. Okay, so another option which this one I showed you in the demo already. So now I'll show you the option from CDN. So SAP already provides an option to load all the resources related to UI5 framework using SAP CDN, Content Delivery Network. So if I just come here and search for SAP UI5 CDN, press enter, and you can see CDN for UI5 library. Go inside, and now I'll see what happens. So you can come down and somewhere you can find, yes, you can see this is the CDN URL for SAP UI5, HTTP SAP UI5 hanaondemand.com resources SAP UI core JS. This is the library. I copy this, I come back. So don't need to remember it, just get the library from CDN, come back and put it here. That's it, guys. Now, congratulations, you have referenced the UI5 framework from internet. Now you will say, Anubhav, why we refer it from CDN? What is the advantage? So there is a great advantage, guys, of referring this on CDN. So let's imagine this is your world map, okay, and there are different countries here, of course, and there are different countries, okay, and let's say you are sitting in Australia, and there's India, there's US, UK, Germany, France, whatsoever. So let's say you're sitting in Australia. Now you are working with SAP UI5 in Australia. So when you load the data from CDN, the CDN is having some data center, right? Where there is something on the internet which is hosting this. There is a server on internet which is kind of hosting this, just like facebook.com. There is a server on internet. So SAP have done a tie-up, yes, like torrents. We all use torrents. So like torrent, there is a server where this file is sitting. So what SAP have done, they have done a tie-up with Akamai. Akamai is a company which are providing data centers online to provide you storages. Okay, very important question, guys. Somebody, if you're going with the interviews, especially with very experienced developer who is taking your interview, he will ask you this question: what is an Akamai server? Akamai is nothing but it's a company with which SAP have tied up, and now they have their UI5 framework available in Akamai server. And this Akamai server having data center across the world, which means earlier what used to happen, the UI5 framework was deployed in a data center in Germany. Now, even though you're accessing or you're building a Fiori application referencing the UI5 framework inside Australia, what it used to do to load the UI5 framework? Anyone? It has to go to all over the network to Germany and then load this UI5 framework from Germany, isn't it? That's what it used to do. But since SAP now announced their SAP UI5 framework with Akamai server, Akamai has their data centers across the globe, which means there is a data center also in Australia or maybe nearby country, whichever is most nearby. Similarly, let's say they have data center in India, they have in US, UK, all the major countries. And then what happens is next time when you load UI5 framework, it doesn't have to go to all the way to Germany. It will go and search for nearest server, nearest Akamai server, and it will load the UI5 framework from that server. So your loading time reduces. Clear? What is an Akamai server? Why we use Akamai? Why SAP using Akamai server? And this CDN is nothing but now your content delivery network is Akamai, and that's what you will also see it on internet when you search. There is also one blog which was coming. The UI5 is now delivered with Akamai CDNC, guys. Okay, so you see over 2 lakh servers are there on internet. You see a leading CDS vendor with more than 2 lakh servers in 2000 data centers in 2000 different countries. They have their data centers, which means when you are loading SAP UI5 framework, it is retrieving from the closest Akamai server. That's what exactly it is. So UI5 since March 2017, which is not so far, like kind of 1 year, they've started delivering it using Akamai server. Is that clear to everyone? What is Akamai server? It's just a CDN providing the content delivery network for UI5 framework, has more than 2 lakh servers across 2000 data centers available across the globe. When you load UI5, it gets loaded from nearest Akamai server, so your loading time have reduced significantly. So it's also recommended to use UI5 framework loading from the internet, but for productive applications, don't use that. Okay, if you are using if you are having S4 HANA, or for example ABAP on HANA, or maybe any gateway server where you want to deploy your Fiori application, which we'll see in near future, probably don't go with this option. Please use only the option which we have it in the gateway server only, so which means you should refer locally. In fact, you will see the meaning of these versions also different. We'll discuss in more detail in upcoming days. But right now, for training purpose, I'm also okay if I'm loading the UI5 from the AKMI server. Clear about it? What is the CDN? What is AKMI server? What do you mean by loading UI5 framework? It's just like you reference jQuery. Similarly, you reference the JavaScript library. The code is SRC only. There is no href property. If you look at our previous unit, what we have done. So let me just go to our uh, web app, and here I'll show you. You can see script src only I've used to reference jQuery. Also to reference our own JavaScript file, I used src, not href. You forgot, I think. There's a chat point here that do you need to use href? No, you have to use src. Okay, so once this is done, you have to also specify which library you want to load. So what happens is UI5 comes pre-packaged with pre-packaged libraries, and there are so many of them for different purpose. Different libraries are in place, but do you load all of them? Do you really need all of them? Of course not. You need libraries which you probably want to use it in your company or for your development purpose. So you don't necessarily need to load all libraries. Okay, so you can just go ahead with some libraries loading, which will then again reduce the time of loading, because you're not loading all resources, you're loading only few libraries, and that's specified using sap-ui-sap data UI libs. Okay, this is what you use to find out which library you want to load. I want to load sap.ui.commons library, which is a very common library for loading common UI5 controls. Clear to everyone? What exactly are we doing here? So first we loaded, just to specify an ID for this script tag. Next we specified data sap UI libs, where you specify the library which you want to load in UI5, and we are then ready. So let's now go ahead and write our first UI5 code. And before we do that, we then have to switch to MVC based architecture. So we have to also create a view and a controller as part of our application. So where is our application? Here it is. So now I'm just going to create a view and a controller. So right click here, say new file. You can also choose SAP UI5 view here directly. So right now I'm using this option. Okay, so SAP UI5 view, and now I can choose the types of views available. So guys, there are different variety of views available in UI5. We will discuss about all of them in our next unit, where I will talk to you about different types of views, what is the difference, and which are all the different views which are used the most. So right now I choose JavaScript view because I'm comfortable with JavaScript coding, and I use main as the name of the view. Sorry, namespace is, I will keep it empty, and I will keep the name of my view as main view. M capital I am keeping. Click on next and click on finish. So you will see now system has created automatically a view folder for me, and a controller also got created for this, and it's ready made. So you see there is a view and there is a controller which has been created automatically for us to create this view. Clear to everyone what has been done? So it has created a view and a controller for us. Now there's a question here. Let me take it. If we use internet based JavaScript, what if something they deprecate some of the functions APIs, then would it be a problem in productive environment? Okay, very important question, and many of you might get confused with this question in case if it is asked to you in interview. Very good question. So you will see in near future I will show you something called UI5 SDK. At that point of time you will see there are some libraries which are deprecated. So spelling is, let me correct it, it's deprecate. So deprecate means what? Do you think deprecate means removal? Watch this word carefully, English word. This means something has been removed. No, guys. Deprecate means there is no further support. Yes, that's what deprecate means. Deprecate doesn't means remove. It's not remove, guys. Remove means permanently it's been removed. It's been discontinued. Deprecate means there is no further support, which means if you are using it and you find an issue in standard code, while using it. SAP will not support for this. They will not fix any issue in these deprecated libraries, in deprecated code, which means you can use it, but it's just that there is no further support, no no future maintenance, neither no new development. That's the deprecate meaning. So it will also happen so in your mind that "अरे यार ये deprecate use कर लिया." No, deprecate doesn't mean that nothing will work. It will still work. It's just that don't or try to as much as possible switch to new libraries, because there is no further support. If you find an issue, if you hit a roadblock, SAP will not support you. Is that clear to everyone what is deprecated means? Okay, that's first in question which has been asked. Next, how many different types of IDs we have like bootstrap? So we have a lot of different keywords, but you don't need to remember all those keywords. So the question is, how many different things we have it here, like ID, like what are all these things? How do you remember? How do I know? So I will tell you the resource from where you can learn all these things, and you will know what are all the possible options. But of course, whatever important options are, I am anyways going to be covering in the training course. Okay, but still I will give you full-fledged reference guide where you can go and find out if there is something which you are not able to understand. Clear? We'll discuss that in upcoming days. Let's come back and focus to the view and controller. So whenever you have a view, what exactly is part of a view? So whenever a view is created, there are two methods which exist in the view. Okay, any view which you see in UI5, I'm talking here about now JavaScript views. There are two default methods created as part of this view. The first method is called get. Okay, let me just write it in the text only. So any JavaScript view has two standard methods created. The first method is called create content, and second is called get controller name. So these are all the two methods which are available as part of the view. So get controller name method always returns the controller name which has the processing code for this view. Clear? It will have its associated controller. So you will see that this is the view, and for this view there is a controller who will have associated code written inside. So that's what exactly this get controller name method will return. It will return the name of the controller associated to the view. Second method is create content. This will always return the control or set of controls which needs to be displayed on user interface. Okay, that's what exactly these two methods will do. Now let's try to understand it. Let's try to understand it little bit. So let's imagine this is your view. Okay, and let's imagine this is your controller. So you have your view and you have your controller here. Okay, so this is your view, this is your controller. Now anybody who execute your code, who understand the view and the controller and what is written inside, who understand these things? Does Java understand? Does ABAP understand? Who understand these things? Who can run this view and the controller? Not browser don't understand HTML5 CSS JavaScript jQuery. Browser only understand HTML CSS JavaScript jQuery. It doesn't understand anything else. UI5 framework. Perfect answer, Samir. So UI5 framework understand this because you are using UI5 framework to build on top of it these things. So UI5 framework has to execute now your view and the controller. Clear to everyone? UI5 framework has to now execute your stuff. It is the executor. It knows what to do. So what UI5 framework does, when you start your application, you always start with index.html. In index.html, what you will do, you will write a code to create the object of the view first of all. So when UI5 framework is encounter the statement to create the object of the view, it will go to the view. Okay, it will first call the views method called get controller name. It will ask the view, okay, tell me who is your controller. Okay, now view will tell, okay sir, this is my controller. So what view will do, view will return back the controller name to UI5 framework. Now UI5 framework has the name of the controller, so it can go and hit this controller and create its object. So in step number 1, there was a call to getting the controller name from the view. After the object of the controller is available, after the name of the controller is available, UI5 framework then creates an object of this controller. Okay, it creates object of this controller. After you create object of the controller, you have now the object of the controller with you inside the UI5 framework. Now this object has to be supplied back to the view so that view can interact with the controller. Currently they are not linked. They are not linked. Okay, so view should talk to the controller. Whenever you want to call a method, what do you use? Can you call method just like method name? What do you use to call method of a class? Anybody? What do you use to call method of a class? Anyone? What do you use to call method of a class? You need what? You need an object. Perfect answer. You need an object. Very good. So similarly, view is also a class. Controller is also a class. This class now needs to call object of another method of another class. What does it need? It needs this object. So UI5 framework created the object of the controller. And now in step number 3, UI5 framework will then call the next method in the view called create content. And in this method, it also pass the controller instance. So this controller object, what it has created, will also be passed to this view here in this method. Now in this method, the view will have all the code to generate the necessary UI controls. Objects are created and written back. So that's what it does. It sends back all the list of controls which you want to display onto the view back to the UI5 framework. Okay, it returns this set of controls which needs to be displayed. And then what UI5 framework does, it pushes all these code, because you started with index HTML. Index HTML only starts this. So index HTML says to UI5 framework, please create me the object of the view. It creates the object of the view. It gives back you the object of the view, and then it gives back you the name of the controller in the first method. It creates the object of the controller, and then it passes the object of the controller. It passes the object of the controller to create content method. This then returns you the set of controls. Now these set of controls which you have got back, you are just going to, what is that user see? Anybody? What is that user see? What is that user see in an HTML? What is that a user see in an HTML? Anybody? What is that a user see in an HTML? User will see something which you place in body of HTML, right? So whatever it has given you, that you simply go and put it into the body of HTML. As a result, your whole view gets displayed to the user. So you will embed a view written or embed a view inside the body of HTML, right? So these are all the steps which we have. Let's go ahead and execute these steps. So first I'll show you the view. This is our view. You can see it's sap.ui.javascript view. So that's why it's starting with JS view. This is the declaration part of the view. Then what it does, it has a get controller name where it is returning the name of the controller. And you see that the controller exists inside a folder controller.main. Main is the name of the controller. So watch carefully the path. Here it is pointing to the controller folder, and then inside the controller folder you have the main controller. That's what it is pointing to. So it is just returning the path of the controller. Is that clear to everyone? First method, get controller name. Do you have any doubt on this? Get controller name method, what it is doing, it's returning the name of the controller to UI5 framework. Remember this picture always. It returning first thing, it returns the name of the controller to the UI5 framework. Now UI5 framework knows who is the controller. UI5 framework then can go and create the object of the controller, that it creates it, and after creating the object, it then calls the create content of your view, and you see here is that object of the controller passed by the UI5 framework. So you see ready-made parameter you are getting in this function. It's a ready-made parameter of controller object, which means if you put some processing logic in controller, you can call that using this object, isn't it? You can call that using this object. And now what I'll do is I'll just flush out this code. Don't want to use any ready-made code. I want to write every single line of code myself. Let's quickly have a look at the controller object also. So again here you see, oops, this seems to be little interesting for you right away to get started with. I don't want to do that. So I want to directly start with something called sap.ui.controller. Okay. Uh, Let me just check, guys, my code. Just give me a second. I think this is not the right syntax. So typically when you start with the controller, okay, maybe I just start right away with this. So what is this here? This is something called scaffolding template. I will discuss about it in our next session. Okay, what is scaffolding? I will discuss about it in next session. But right now understand that it's a controller. Now, can anybody tell me in which language controller is written? In which language controller is written? In which language? JavaScript. Why JavaScript? Why not XML? Why not HTML? Because controller is all about processing logic, and the browser can only and only understand JavaScript as the processing logic. That's the reason controllers are always written in JavaScript. Now what we have inside this controller, you see everything is commented only. So what is this on init, what is this on after rendering? These things we don't need to care right now, just skip it. So just see that there is a controller definition which exists at this point. Okay, there is nothing else which you need to focus. Don't focus on what is this, what is this. Don't focus on that, don't worry, we'll discuss about it in detail in upcoming days. Now right now, if you see, we have a view where we have get controller name, it's returning the controller name. We have a create content method. In this, now I can write my code to return a button out. Okay, I want to return a button out. So what I can do is create a button obtn equals to new sap ui commons dot button, and now here I just give an id of the button. So remember the syntax, we already discussed this in the demo class, curly braces, and now I can put property for the button. Let's say I will put the property text property to give the label for the button, and I say my first button. Save this and just return this out of this create content method. So return the button code out. That's your first view. Congratulations. Create content method. You write your API. You use this API and put the element, create its object and return that object. So get controller name we are clear. Create content we are clear. What is a view we are clear. What is a controller we are clear. We are not clear about this piece of code. We will discuss this in detail. Don't panic right now. Just ignore it. Just understand there is a view, there is a controller and their path. Now let's create the object of the view. Okay, let's create the object of the view. So typically the object of the view is not created inside bootstrap. This is your bootstrap code. Okay, we all know what is bootstrap code. Bootstrap is nothing but loading of the or initialization of your library. That's your bootstrap. So this is called UI5 bootstrap. And now I will come down and just add a div element in my body. I'll just name it as id equals to content. Anything you can name it, whatever is your choice. You can name it Spider-Man also, doesn't matter. Now what I'll do is I'll write another script and script tag, and in this whatever code I write, it gets executed directly because I'm not putting any function. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just create object of a view. So I say var object of view is equals to new sap.ui.view, and then I will put ID of the view. I'll put view name, and I'll put view type. I think it's just the type property. Okay, that's what I'll put. And once this view object is created, I will just ask the view to be displayed in the DOM. So I call place at method of the view, and I'll say place it in my Spider-Man, because what user sees what's there in the DOM. Clear to everyone? Now ID, I'll just put ID main. In the view name, I'll put the path of the view. So it's part of my view directory. Inside that main view is the name. So view slash main, sorry, view dot main. That's the path of my view. The type of the view is JavaScript, JS in capital letter. We are done. This is how we're creating object of the view, and then later on this view is then being placed in the DOM, body of HTML. Clear to everyone how to create view object and how to put it into the body of HTML. Now you can right click on the project, go to project settings, and now you will see project setting here. I think not here. Right click, run configuration, add a new run configuration, and say I want to launch web application. And now you see it is automatically picked up the HTML file which you have in your project. Save and run. It will launch the application, and you see nothing is loading. Press F12. There is something wrong, and you will see an error coming here. There is something wrong. You see view slash main view.js failed to load view slash main view.js. What is happening, guys? System is unable to find the path of this view, though you have given the system that my view exists in this path. System is still unable to find that this particular view directory which we are trying to point belongs to my local folder, not to the UI5 core. Are you getting this point? Let me show you again. See what it is trying to do. Fail to load view slash main view JS. From where it is trying to load? See here, URL UI5 hana-on-demand.com resource view main view JS. It's trying to load from SAP UI5 website, this view. Do you think the view which we created is part of SAP UI5 website? Anyone? Do you think the view which we created is part of SAP UI5 website? It's not. What it is part of? It's a local, correct? It's part of my local folder, and that's why I have to now also specify special path for my local folder. Okay, special path for my local folder. So currently I am inside which file? Anybody? I am inside which file currently? What is the file I am inside? What is the file I am inside right now? Which file I am into right now? I am inside index.html. What is the directory to which index.html belongs to? Anybody? Which directory index.html will belong to? Is it part of the view? Is index.html part of view directory? Come on. Are you sure? No, it's part of this directory. It's part of this directory. So what we can do is we can give a special command to our bootstrap saying that whenever you're loading resources, don't load them from outside. These resources, my project local resources, should be loaded from this folder. Everything inside this folder is what I want to load as my local resource. Rest all should go to this SAP UI5 website. Okay, so for that you have to specify in your bootstrap that I want to load my local resources from this folder, and this folder is the parent folder of my index.html. So always current working directory is indicated using dot slash, right? Do you all agree? Current working directory of a file is indicated using dot slash. Do you all agree or not agree? Current working directory of a file is represented using dot slash. Yes, so we have to tell the system that we are inside index HTML, and current working directory of index HTML is dot slash, and I want to give a special name to it, and I will say Anubhav. Okay, I want to name it. I want to name this file as Anubhav, which means current working directory. What does Anubhav will point to now? Anyone? What will Anubhav will point to? Is the folder or is the view? Anybody? Will Anubhav point to my UI5 app folder or will it point to index HTML? It will point to directory, which is nothing but my UI5 app. So whenever you want to give path, you will always give path with reference to this my UI5 app folder. So Anubhav in your entire project means this folder. Is that clear to everyone? The concept of path. Current working directory of index HTML, which is this. Hence, I am giving a name to it. This is called namespace in UI5. Okay, this is called namespace. What is namespace? It's a path of current working directory in UI5. Let's do that. So what I'll do is I will come here and give a namespace, and for that sap-data-ui-resource roots equals to, you have to now give the namespace single quote curly braces, and inside this you have to give namespace. Remember, it's a JSON format, that's why you see I'm giving inside single quote curly braces a JSON format. And now you will put the path and what is the name of the path you want. So dot slash means Anubhav. And now guys, Anubhav means this directory. So can anybody tell me the path of my view now? What is the path of my view? Consider starting with this directory, top directory. What is the path of my view now? If this is Anubhav, what is the path of my view? Anubhav dot view dot main, isn't it? Anubhav dot view dot main, isn't it? Is that not the path? If I am saying this is pointing to Anubhav, okay, what is the path of my view? How do I reach to the view from Anubhav? This is Anubhav dot view dot,
Anwar, I have a question.
yes please.
This how do we come to know that my UI5 app is Anubhav
This is what we have done here. We declared it. That's because so that we can point to every resource inside our project, we have to give an alias name. You can also do one thing. You can just say my first UI5 app. Doesn't matter what. This is just a namespace. You are just giving alias name to the directory, to the folder name. You're just giving an alias name to it.
Okay, so dot slash means the
Current working
first node.
directory. You are inside which file?
Okay, okay,
Index HTML. What is the current working directory of index HTML?
okay.
This one. What is the name I want to give it to it in my project? This one. It's a alias name I want to give, which means in future if I want to point any file inside my project, I can use this namespace as prefix. This namespace means my root folder. It's just to define the path of the root folder, guys. That's the only purpose, nothing much. So you're just giving a alias name. You can give anything. You can give Spidey, whatever you like you can give. It's just that you're telling the name of the root folder which you will use in your project. In your project you have to reference the files, right? You have to tell where is my file. So all that will happen using path. So it doesn't go to this website to search that file. It should be local. Okay, now I say Anubhav and I come down and I say Anubhav dot view dot mean. That's my path of the view. It will now not go to this website to load this view because it's local reference. It's a local file which I want to refer. Similarly, all the problems will now create because in everywhere you have to change this path accordingly. Your controller also part of Anubhav folder. So you have to give proper namespace everywhere. Yeah, that I corrected now. And let's re-execute it. I come back, refresh the page, and again some error is coming. Let's see. Again it's trying to go and load it from the from you see UI5 SAP UI5 HANA on demand.com, which means I've done mistake. It has not picked up the path still. So there is some mistake. I think is resource R is capital, resource roots. Let me be very sure if this is the problem. No, that's not the problem. Then maybe I think Anubhav should come first and then the path should come. Let me be very sure. I think I'm doing some mistake. No, that's also not working. So maybe what I'll do is I'll quickly go back to our demo, which we had happened earlier. And in this, I will just check it, the resource path. So don't panic about these files right now. I'm just trying to see what it means. And you see SAP dot data SAP UI resource roots. First the namespace they are giving, then they're giving the directory path. That's what they're giving. So let me see what mistake I've done. Data SAP UI resource roots, is the spelling correct? Let me check. Let me be very sure. Yes, it's correct.
It's
Data.
dot dot.
You see SAP data not there. It's data SAP. Yeah, that's the mistake I've done. So data hyphen SAP hyphen UI. That's what I have done. And resource roots. Then the path of my namespace colon dot slash is the current working directory. And that's what is the current path. Now let's come back and try. Refresh. Now you see it says button cannot be found. I think the mistake is here also. It's data SAP UI leaps. And come back and refresh again. And you see cannot read property button of undefined. It's unable to now read the button. So the problem is now with our this code. So data SAP UI commons, it's unable to load the library. The reason is very simple, guys. Currently it's unable to load this sap.ui.commons. That's the reason it's saying button not found. Let me check again my sample code. What is the bootstrap for loading the library? It's data SAP UI libs equals to the file name. Did I do mistake? Where did I do mistake? Thank you. So you see the commons, I have done a typo. I have to put cup triple M. So it should be double M. Okay. So this is the piece of code to load the commons library. This is the piece of code which is marking the root directory. Root directory means all the files which I have in my project should be referenced from this path. It's a one-time effort, one-time activity. Once it is settled, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, then you have your controller, your view, and your index HTML. Let's execute now, and I'm sure it should work. Refresh, and let's see. It's now, you see it's moving, which means loading, and voila, you see your first button is appearing on the UI. But does it look like, beautiful Fury or UI5 app? What do you think? Does it look like a beautiful app or not? Doesn't look like a beautiful app. It looks like a college project. What is the reason? Reason is theme is not loaded. So UI5 comes with theme. What is theme? Theme, when you load, it loads all the CSS file, right? Do you remember our chapter where we applied CSS, and the moment we removed the CSS, what has happened? It has created the web page as like raw crude web page. So without CSS, beautification doesn't come. So to bring the CSS in place, we need what? We need to load the theme in UI5. So again, there's another parameter which I'm loading, data hyphen SAP hyphen UI hyphen theme equals to SAP underscore blue crystal. Save this. Let's come back, refresh. And this time, voila, you see how beautiful it looks. That same button got converted to a beautiful button because the theming is applied. Now I want it to also look more beautiful. So to the body, I just add a class name to my body equals to SAP UI body. Now what is the what it will bring? SAP UI body means I am just adding a class name, and the code to handle this class name is already there in the CSS file provided by SAP. So the moment you now refresh your page, you will see the whole screen will look like blue color. That's a blue crystal theme, and the theme gets applied when you have class name attached at the element level, because in UI5 CSS file they have written a code that this is the class name, then the color will turn to blue color. Okay, now you may be wondering, Anubhav, it's so complex, you are doing so many things, how will I remember? Point one, it's a one time activity. Okay, I am not asking any of these things you to remember. Believe me, you don't need to remember them. I will show you easy technique with which these things gets created automatically. But my purpose is not to make you remember these things. Per purpose is to make you understand what each parameter means. Do you understand meaning of each parameter? And that can only happen when we write code line by line. I could have also copy pasted this code and would have told you, okay, this is the UI5 bootstrap, use it as it is. But I didn't do it. I have written every single line of code at front of you, explaining the meaning of it to you, so that you understand now every single line and its meaning. Is that clear to everybody? It's a one time effort. Initial first 2 3 videos it will be little challenging for you because we are not doing copy paste, but believe me, this has a great advantage for your career. I'm doing it for something for good for you. So don't copy paste this. Write these single every single line of code once. Okay, you will also face issues like I was facing while writing it, but at the end when you get the result, though it is very small result, but the impact of this is very big. You now understand every single line, what is each line is doing in bootstrap. And this is my first interview question. When somebody come for UI5 interview, I will put the bootstrap at front of them, and I will ask them to tell me what is this doing, what is this doing, what is this doing. I will ask these questions in my interviews, because people become UI5 developer by proclaiming or by doing copy paste, but they don't know when the problem comes now, they will not be able to solve, but you will be able to solve because you know every single line of code what is happening. So you saw, due to the path, due to we didn't put this path, what happened is it was trying to load the resources from somewhere else. But since the moment we put path and put the path over here, it has started loading the resource from my local project. Similarly, when I put this UI body and put the theme parameter, it has got me a beautiful user interface. My button was looking very bad, and then it started looking good. The moment I added this class name at the body level, it also changed the background color of my page to blue crystal theme. Okay, so that's very important. Any questions, anybody, before we close today's class? Anyone? There is no class tomorrow. Just one update, there is no class tomorrow. I will be on leave tomorrow, so there will not be any class tomorrow. What exactly view?
Okay, so Anubhav, how do we know the code starting with data SAP UI libs to write? Is there a way where we can know this is the code to be written, data SAP UI libs, data SAP UI theme?
Correct. There is indeed. We will discuss in detail about it in next class. But let me just quickly show you to complete the loop. There is something called SAP UI5 SDK, Software Development Kit. This is called UI5 SDK, Software Development Kit. This is a new technology. People are involving into it. Suddenly, you will not get dreams about what to code. There has to be some guide for you, right? And this is our one single stop shop where we find all the information about UI5. In this, if you go to documentation, people come to me asking, will you give document? Why do you need document? Everything is available absolutely free on internet, on the UI5 SDK. This is the single source of truth for everyone to use UI5. Do you want me to take this itself into a PDF and give you? I can, but you will not use it. You will again come here only, because this is the latest and greatest information about UI5. And here is when you expand it, or you search for bootstrap, You can see walkthrough Bootstrap step number 2, and you will come down and you see this is the Bootstrap. And you see data SAP UI theme, SAP Bleeze, SAP UI libs, they are loading library. These two I have not yet discussed. I will discuss them in our next chapter. You see SRC property, you see ID property, all that is given here. Yeah, all that is given here. Bootstrap loading initializing, you can see here every single property is explained. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? Standard bootstrapping variant. Yeah. So you see, all the information is already there. And now you see variant for bootstrapping from content delivery network CDN. Go inside. You see, this is the UI5 library. We are loading from CDN, from internet. Yeah. Is that clear? Where to find the information? UI5 SDK single stop information. In fact, in upcoming days, I will introduce this in detail, each section, what is the purpose, and we can also find for the button. So if you see the button, I put a text property. How do I know that there is a text property for button? So if I go to the view, you see there is a text property for button. How do you know that there is a text property? So if I show you quickly once again, not taking much time, I go to API reference and I search for button here, and then I click on the button. Sorry, it's part of UI Commons. So UI Commons is a deprecated library. According to the assumption which most of developer has, it shouldn't have been here, right? It shouldn't have been here. If you think deprecated means removed, deprecated means it doesn't have a further support, but still the support is there. You can use it, but it's deprecated. No future support, no future enhancement, no support from SAP. You can still use it. Go to the button, you will also find that it's deprecated library. You see deprecated library. Yeah, so you'll find an alternate also for this, but it's a deprecated library. Now come to the properties, and you see there's a text property. That's how I got to know that there is a text property for button. Okay, just closing the loop. Of course, this is something which is again part of one of the chapter we will discuss in our upcoming days. Okay, so don't panic. There's a lot to come. This is just first snapshot of creating app to understand the bootstrap better. Our main intention of today's class to understand MVC pattern and bootstrap. This is what was important for me to explain you in today's class. There is lot more yet to come. We will discuss that in detail. Next question, what exactly view is doing here? Is the in this example I don't see any role of view and controller. Maybe once you go forward, more example, reply in private. Okay, of course you may see that there is no use of a view, but view is an abstraction of user interface. Let me tell you, we are just following MVC design pattern, and MVC design pattern says even though you just have one button, you could have put that the button directly into the index HTML. But MVC pattern says even you have just one button, put it in the view. You have any processing logic, put it in the controller. That's MVC pattern. We are just following MVC design pattern. You may not see a usage of putting a view, but yes, we are just following MVC design pattern. Is that clear? Okay, and of course you will see more to it. This is not a app which we want to achieve. We want to achieve a very nice beautiful Fury application which you will build it in soon. But just understand, this is the easiest example which I can take to explain MVC pattern. Okay, is there any significance of SRC? Yes, it is. If you go to the Bootstrap, SRC property is actually used to load the UI5 framework. This is the path of the framework, and within the framework, when we are loading the framework, what to load is this library, which theme to load is this theme, and what will be the path of my local resources is this. So framework will be loaded.
Anubhav,
Yes.
instead of giving a URL, we can give a path also, right? So it's
Yes,
like
yes, yes. So you can give local path.
many a time.
Yes, you can give that.
Okay,
So
okay,
now it will load it from local. Okay.
okay, okay,
Okay, but there is a catch to it. It's called neoapp.json, which we will discuss maybe in the upcoming chapter. So right now, guys, what is the right way of learning? Right way of learning, Open my video when you want to learn it. Watch the video, pause, play the video, have a notebook and pen with you, keep noting down every notes, and keep practicing in the system simultaneously. These things if you start doing, nobody can challenge you in UI5. It's my promise to you. But you have to work hard. Just by coming to the session, listening to the session and going away will not help you. You have to practice. Otherwise, one day after five, 6 classes, you will see you will lose your interest because you will stop understanding anything because you're not practicing. You will not remember them. You will remember when you write once with your own hand. Come back, bring, I want that engineering student back in your life. That engineering student which used to complete 8 subjects, 4 laboratories, one mini project, one seminar, interim tests, and 2 main exams. And all that, how many duration? 1 semester. And how much is 1 semester equals to anyone? 1 semester equals to what? Anybody? Engineering students, please. What is 1 semester? 6 months. This is what you have done and you are here. What happened to you? Where are you, man? What happened to you? Company की हवा लग गई. What happened to you? This was you. This was you who have done it in just 6 months. In just 6 months. Come on. I want that engineering student back. I want that student back. That point of time, you were paying to college 40,000. Probably when I was in college, it was like 40,000 my semester fee. Okay, you were paying 40,000 and you were doing all this, and now you're getting paid for doing all this, but nobody's doing it. So open notebook, buy a notebook and pen today. Buy a notebook and pen today. Watch my videos, which I already covered. Note down every single important thing. Create your own funda foxes. What is important? Practice in the system. It will take time. Believe me, it will take time. There is no easy way. I cannot give you a pill to kill. There is no easy way. You need to note down everything if you want to remember them. Create your own funda fox, create your own notes, carry that notebook with you when you are traveling. Open that notebook and try to do chintan about it. Try to rememberize, try to do remembrance, try to recall things what I taught you, and try to practice things in the system. Understand every single line of code. Those who are doing copy paste of code, I am not with you. You can get the output, but I am not with you. You are doing copy paste, you are not my student. Do copy paste once you understand things. So today you understood these things, tomorrow you do copy paste of this code. I don't have a problem because you know this piece of code. Even you copy paste, nobody can take that knowledge away from you. But today you do copy paste of this code, you are not my student. You cannot learn from me. If you want to learn from me today, what code I taught you, you have to write it down, every single line of code in the system, and practice it. Tomorrow you copy paste this code to speed up your development. You already done this, you copy paste this code, leave it. Bootstrap is there for you, you leave it. Tomorrow you do copy paste of it. Today you do write every single line of code, put it down into notebook, note down every single bit of it, practice it in the system. I am there to work hard with you. You have to work hard with me. 100% nobody will be able to beat you in the industry in UI5 and Fury. It's my open challenge. Moving to the next question. So just following MVC pattern, significance of SRC, you already know, loading the bootstrap. Then coming next, only view to controller is possible. I did not get this question. Only view to controller is possible. I did not get this question. Please clarify this question in detail. I did not get this question. Okay, let me take more questions. So here there are some more questions. I'll pick them up. We'll close it fast. Don't worry. 2 more minutes. Okay, there you go. So is bootstrap ID name is always same? Yes, it is fixed. You always use it. That's a standard provided by SAP, and that's what we also saw it in the UI5 SDK, correct? In the UI5 SDK, when I went to documentation and search for Bootstrap, I saw that it's fixed. ID is fixed. That's what SAP is also recommending you to use, right? So UI5 Bootstrap, you see ID is fixed. That's what they give you. Next, namespace declaration is only required if we are using CDN. No, namespace is always required because you always have local files. You always have these files of your project. To reference the files of your project, you need namespace. To point to the files, point to the controllers views and different files in the project resources, you need namespace. It's always needed, whether you load it from CDN or load it local, doesn't matter. You always need namespace, always. Will you be explaining about XML view also? Yes, that's our main bread and butter. Our majority of the example, 70% of code is built using XML in this course. In industry, 90% of views are coded in XML. Now you will say, why not JavaScript, Anubhav? That's an interview question. I'm going to discuss that also in detail. That's an interview question. Why we use XML views, why not JavaScript views? We'll discuss that in detail in our upcoming days. Don't worry. Okay. It's part of our course. Don't panic. This is just the beginning, guys. I understand your curiosity. I understand your excitement, but please control it little bit. We cannot cover everything in one day. It's impossible. Your question, keep them coming in. I will guide you what is right, what is wrong, what is important at this point, what is not. I will guide you with that. But don't stop posting question with my comments. You have to still keep posting your comments, but the ones which are genuine doubts, just for the sake of questions, don't ask question. But genuine doubts you can always ask. Okay, one more. In SAP UI5 Commons library, part of subset of UI core. No, UI core JS is a different library. Okay, the question is the this library is a subset of SAP UI core JS? Yes, SAP UI core JS is UI5 framework. Okay, it's your framework, guys. And UI Commons is a library inside the framework. You know, framework is a collection of library. Clear to everyone? All the doubts? Somebody unmute. Okay. Can we have multiple controllers in one object? Perfect question. I will answer this in the next question. Can we have multiple controllers? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. And that's what we'll do. We'll modularize our app. We will have multiple controllers, multiple views. Okay. We will do that. Answer is yes. We will have it. Okay. So see you day after tomorrow. Tomorrow we don't have any class. I will also send cancellation of meeting. Those who are joining the course for the first day, please try to complete as much as possible using videos so you can match up to this session with us. And see you day after tomorrow. I wanted to also inquire with all of you. Do you want leave on Holi? Do you want leave on Holi? Holi is on 2nd. So please confirm. I want to see the votes here. If more yes, we will plan it. If more no's, we will not plan it. So please confirm yes or no. Let me count yes and no's. So I'll just count no's. Okay. One no, two no, one yes, then one more yes, one more yes, one more no, no, one more yes, one no, one yes, one yes, one more no, one yes, one no, one yes, one yes, one no, one yes, one yes. So majority is saying yes. So let's plan a leave on 2nd of, which is Friday, this weekend. Okay, so you will have a long weekend to enjoy, but please practice, guys. So we'll just have a one class on 1st of March. Okay, we'll just have one class on 1st of March. 2nd of March we are not having any class. Morning India time, which is Thursday evening your time. Majority of you, those who are in US, so Thursday evening your time, will not have a class. Today evening also, tomorrow evening also you'll not have a class your time. My time tomorrow morning will not have a class. I'll send the cancellation of both of these invites. We'll just have one class now towards the end of weekend. just one class, which is day after tomorrow. Thank you so much. See you next class. Have a nice day. Goodbye.